Hi, thrifty friends. It's Laura. I hope you're all doing well. I'm not doing anything. We are still locked down. We have been since Christmas. It's supposed to lift February the 11th, I think, but there is a rumor that it may not. Excuse me. So, I have been working on a little project that I'm calling Finding Kevin. If any of you remember, in the summertime, I purchased a very large box of photographs and cabinet cards, old cards, paper ephemera from an antique store in Arnprior, and he had gotten it from a house clear out. It was a family in the upper Ottawa Valley. It had been, they were a pioneer family. It was a settled a land grant type of situation back in the 1800s. If you cleared the land, built a house, did what a few other things, you got title to the land. And this family had lived there a few generations, but had petered out. So I I got really interested. I was really fascinated by the story of this family, and one gentleman in particular. He would have been the youngest fella in the family, and he never married and had children. So that's why the family petered out. Here is a picture of him, and this is Kevin, and this is his Aunt Mary, who by her family was often called Maisie. And I just found that face just fascinating and interesting. And being a retired farmer myself, I see the sun and the weather and the wind and the hard work in that face. So I wanted to try to find out a little more about him. As I'm going through all the pictures, don't mind me, I've been out and about, I realize I have pictures of Kevin from the time he was a toddler through to the almost just a few years before he passed. Here he is as a toddler. It was this hairstyle that drew me in, with two parts. I don't know if that was a hairstyle in the 1930s. Here's another picture of him with the same hairstyle. Beautiful cabinet cards. Looks a little bit like Stephen Hawking there. But there's a wisdom in that face. And then I'll show you some of the other pictures, or will I show... Okay, where will I go? Okay. I'll show you the other pictures after. There's hundreds of pictures in the box. Just hundreds of them. So I've just paired out a few. But my curiosity was piqued, and I was something about it nagging in my brain. Well, it finally clicked. I bought this book quite a few years ago at a secondhand store. And it's just stories of regular people who live in the Ottawa Valley. Farmers, country, rural people mostly. Well, look who's in there. That's Kevin and Maisie. So these stories, on each page is a picture and a story. They were written by the people in the picture. They're not written by an author. So I'll read you a little bit of Maisie's words. This is Mary McHugh and Kevin McHugh roughing it in Spruce Hedge. I made my way to Spruce Hedge. I found it. It's not a town. It's Four Corners. That's all it is. She says, I've lived here all my life. I'm 84. I can't get around very fast. We farmed when my brother was living. That would have been Kevin's dad. We quit that. I was never married. This is my nephew. He's my brother's son. And it's just the two of us here now. The house is 125 years old, if not more. 4 generations have lived here now. This house was put up with an axe, nothing else, maybe a hammer. You look out there, the logs are wide. My grandfather built it. They came over from Ireland. I'm Irish to the core. It's nice and quiet up here. We never wanted for anything. The work was hard, but it was honest. And she goes on to say they have no electricity. They never did up until the time she passed. And they light the house with coal oil lamps. And I do have photographs that are dated in the 80s with the coal oil lamps still on their dining room table. So they really fascinated me. I'll show you a few more pictures of Kevin. This is him as a toddler, maybe 1 year old, with his mother. Her name was Margaret. This is him in front of the cabin. This is the cabin that she refers to in the article or in the story. Those are big logs. And this is the main part of the cabin. And here's a little addition here, and there was a similar addition on this end of the cabin. This is Kevin and his grandmother Ellen. So it would have been her and her husband that were the second generation on this farmstead. Here's a picture of Kevin with his cattle out the back. And I figured out that down past these trees, the land goes down and slants to the Madawaska River, because there are pictures of them watering the cattle down there. Here's my favorite. Let me show you this. Here's Kevin with the farm's team of horses. And here's what they were doing with the team of horses. There's Kevin standing with his pitchfork. And they are bringing in loose hay. No mechanization there at all. They would have had a device, a mower that they pulled with the horses that would cut the grass. They'd leave it for a few days till it dried, and then everyone would come out with their pitchforks and they forked it up onto the oh, it's Fred. They forked it up onto the wagon. And I got to do that once with a farm family that were friends of mine, and it's hard and it's hot. So I thought those were great pictures. Here is Kevin with his grandfather and his father, Lorne. Here's a lovely shot of him perhaps as a teen. He was a very tall guy, so it's been difficult to sort of peg his age as I'm looking through the pictures of the ones that are dated. This one's 1967, and it looks like his dad maybe got a new car. So that's his father, that's Maisie or Mary, and there's Kevin. So somebody titled it Off to the Races. This is Kevin later in life with his Aunt Ellen. And Ellen moved off the farm to Montreal during her working life, and it looks like was a secretary. I have a picture of her in front of a typewriter. I have books, shorthand books with her name in it. But she did come back to the farm when she turned 65. She retired back to the farm. She never married. This is Mary or Maisie that he's pictured with here. And this is obviously quite a bit later in life. He's getting pretty gray. Here's another one later in life with his father. And this gentleman shows up in a lot of pictures, but I haven't ascertained who he is. Look at that old truck there. So now I came to a dead end after that. But this church, there's a lot of pictures of this church. It obviously was the family's church. It is a pioneer church. It was built in the 1850s by the people who settled up in this part of the Upper Ottawa Valley. A lot of Irish settled up there. I did a bit of research and found out there was a lot of mining up there, and a lot of Irish came over to work in the mines. So maybe that's what Kevin's great-grandfather did. Fred. Yes, you're a toad. Fred says hi. Say hi, Fred. Okay. Oh, you rotten cat. Anyway, where was I? Okay. The picture that helped date Kevin is this one. This is at the church. That's the cemetery that's all around that church. My girlfriend says that this is First Holy Communion, and usually the children are about 7 or 8 years old. So, lucky for me, this is dated 1943, and that made Kevin, I think, born in 1935. Not 100% sure. So, here we are, and I let it sit for, a few months. So, my neighbor and I were out for a drive, and we went up the Ottawa Valley. It's beautiful up there. And don't we go by that church? Well, screech to a halt, whip the car around, and we jump out and we start looking at the church. And then I said, I wonder if Kevin's family is buried here. Sure enough, we found the gravestone, and it's got his grandmother, grandfather, the two aunts, his father, his mother. And I couldn't find Kevin. I thought, darn it all. We looked all around. There was a lot of other people in that family, cousins, aunts, uncles, whatever. Went back to the gravestone and took a closer look. Not on the part where all the engraving is, but the stony bit at the bottom. It just said Kevin. No birth date, no last name, just 1998. So I found Kevin. It's been a fun adventure. I want to go back and look at the gravestones again and find out more if I can. There's a lot of people here. I'd love to find out more about them. Ellen was the one that I got a lot of information about because she lived in the city. I've got notebooks of hers, and she seemed to be the one who kind of looked after the family a little bit. It doesn't seem like Maisie never worked off the farm. It doesn't seem like Kevin ever worked off the farm. Ellen seems to be the only one who was off the farm. I assume Lorne, his dad, was off the farm working somewhere. So it's been fun. I thought I'd share it with you because I haven't got a darn thing to show you. And I hope we all get back to thrifting and normal life soon. Everybody take care, and we'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.